Now, yesterday, Checkpoint revealed details of a poll conducted by UMR Research. Asked if they supported legalising marijuana for medicinal use, 72% of the 1,000 people surveyed said yep. So that's 3/4. Another poll question about legalising marijuana for personal use found public opinion is evenly split, basically exactly 50-50. This morning on Morning Report, the Police Association's Greg O'Connor said, and I quote, "If you're going to liberalise our drug laws, you have to have a look at Colorado." So we did. In the US state, cannabis was approved for medicinal use in 2000 and has been legal for recreational use since 2012. Adults aged 21 or over can grow up to 6 cannabis plants and legally possess and purchase 1 ounce of cannabis at a time. So how has it been working in Colorado? Well, we asked our Colorado correspondent, Mary McCarty, who's worked on these stories a great deal.
Well, I can tell you, to get marijuana here in Colorado, it's as easy as getting a Big Mac at McDonald's or a coffee at Starbucks, because in fact there are more marijuana shops, or dispensaries as we call them here in Colorado, than there are McDonald's and Starbucks coffees combined. They are literally on every corner of the street around the capital of Colorado, Denver, and around many towns and cities all around the state. It's very easy. You walk into a shop with an ID showing that you're at least 21 years old. They let you in, and then you can go to one of 2 counters, either the recreational marijuana counter, where you have, all these different strains of marijuana in jars. You also have edible forms of it, cookies, brownies, lollipops, cannabis you can drink. Or you go to the medical counter, which also has the same products available, only you have to have a medical card. So it's incredibly easy, and it's really the only place in the world where you have this retail system. Other states have also legalized it, a few other states, but nothing is sort of as has advanced as much on the retail end as Colorado has.
Okay, so that's extraordinary availability. And what has been the consequence of that on the downside?
So when it was legalized a couple of years ago for recreational purposes, so for anyone over 21, the people who were against it, which was close to half of the population here in Colorado, they said, we're going to end up with stoners in the street and stoned drivers and, a spike in the number of car accidents, and just sort of what you'd expect if suddenly everybody is using this drug that wasn't widely legally available before. And in fact, none of that has happened. I can tell you that there's not, you don't see people out in the street smoking any more than you would in most cities where you can get marijuana on the black market. The only real difference is somewhat anecdotal, is that around Denver, where I live and work, because you have these shops and you have these grow operations, there's quite a strong smell often of cannabis, but it's something you get used to. It's not something that most people really complain about, or if you walk around, if you live in an apartment, you're going to smell it because it's more readily available than in other places. But any of this sort of catastrophic fears that the opponents have had, absolutely none of that has happened here in Colorado.
And so what has happened to those opponents? Have they been eating humble pie, as it were, after the fact? Is there consensus in Colorado that this has been a success?
Absolutely. It's seen as a success as sort of the national standard for how this should be done. The critics are still out there, and they're still speaking out mostly in terms of the fact that this can have an effect on youth, that cannabis, like any drug, or whether it's like alcohol, that if the brain and body are developing, that people who are young need to be taught that could affect their brain and their body, and that it needs to be used in moderation. So, in fact, some of the money that's collected from taxes on marijuana, a certain portion of that goes towards public health campaigns, teaching adolescents, teaching, for example, pregnant women that just like with alcohol, there are risks to using marijuana. So it's the campaign slogan, in fact, when it was legalized, was let's regulate marijuana like alcohol. Let's make it something that the state can sell, that we can raise taxes on, but that will also include this public health campaign, making people aware of the fact that, like anything, it does pose some risks.
Who's selling it? Who's making the money?
So these entrepreneurs, who many of them actually, so in Colorado, like in many of the western states, especially, medical marijuana has been legal for many years, well over a decade, and an industry was built up around that in Colorado and in California and other states. And those people who had the licenses to sell medical marijuana became quite successful entrepreneurs in this highly regulated system. It's not this sort of wild west of marijuana. They have to track every plant from the moment it's planted to the moment where it's sold to a customer. So they were already very experienced people in the marijuana industry, but only for medical purposes. And they were the people who were given the initial licenses, in fact, to sell recreational marijuana. So it's sort of this seamless transition of businessmen and women, many of whom I've reported on and interviewed, and who are really these high-level business minds, again, not the stoner stereotype, who've been working in marijuana for many years and now have been given the right to also sell it recreationally. So we have those people. We also have a lot of venture capitalists coming into Colorado. There's talk of the green rush, of it being a major growing industry. And just to give you one number, the 2015 sales of marijuana, both recreational and medical, reached nearly $1 billion, $996 million, so essentially $1 billion. So this is an industry that business people are certainly aware it's something to be reckoned with and that a lot of them want to cash in on.